President, please be seated. The court is now in session. The chamber continues hearing the testimony of Nguyen Trec. The floor is given to the defense team for Mr. Nguyen Chie to put questions to address. And the defense team, the two defense teams still have one session today because you have used one session already.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Witness, good afternoon. I will be continuing my questions from yesterday. Yesterday afternoon, when we broke, you were speaking about being in the prison office that you indicated as being Tuol Sleng prison. Let me follow up with some questions in respect of your stay there. In your DC Chem statement E3/7537 at English ERN 00251254, French 002911004, and Khmer 0001967. You said that before you were brought to this prison office, that you were told, that you were lied to, that they would take you to the international hospital. Who was it that told you that you would be taken to the international hospital?
President, please hold on. You may now proceed first. Deputy Co-Prosecutor.
Thank you, Mr. President. My objection is to the initial comment that led to this question, which was that the witness has stated he was at Tuol Sleng. He was asked about this passing comment in his DC Cam interview yesterday, and he clearly said he was not at Tuol Sleng, but that there were people who were brought to that office who were later taken to Tuol Sleng. It's clear from his OCIJ statement he did not know what office he was at. So I think counsel should not be leading the witness or representing that this witness was at Tuol Sleng when he hasn't even asked the witness what office he was at.
Well, I was just rereading the draft transcript from yesterday.
And just give us the reference, makes it easier.
Well, I asked him yesterday about which prison office he thought it was.
Where in the draft transcript?
At the very end. At 1600, so that's yesterday. And I asked him this question because in his DC Chem statement he clearly says on two occasions that he was in it was the Tuol Sleng prison office. That is on the same page as I just referred to. Yesterday I asked him how did he know it was the Tuol Sleng prison office, and then he gave another answer. So his answer yesterday in combination with his DC Chem statement makes me to understand that the witness is saying that he was at the Tuol Sleng prison office. So I think my question was justified. Whether that is really the case, that is ultimately for the chamber to decide, but I understand the testimony to be that he thought that he was for a few days being interrogated and photographed in the Tuol Sleng prison office.
So why don't we clarify that? witness, is it your understanding that you for a couple of days have been in the S21 prison office?
No, at the Tuol Sleng prison, that's what he said.
I'm sorry, that's true.
I was brought to the prison office before we were further sent to Tuol Sleng. I did not realize at first that it was Tuol Sleng prison, but there was a comrade telling me and others that you are all here, you will be imprisoned. Later on, this information was learned by my chairman. He came to rescue me, and my chairman says that I had nothing to do with the mistakes leading to prison term. My chairman requested me back so that I could be refashioned. Then, if I could not be refashioned, I would be sent for that prison office.
So that will bring me back to my initial question. Mr. Witness, in your DC Chem statement on the pages that I just referred to, you said before you were brought to the prison office that, quote, they lied to me, telling me that they'd taken me to the international hospital, and I didn't realize either that it was Tuol Sleng prison office. I thought it was the office of the international hospital, so I just sat there and waited. My question to you is, who told you that you'd be going to the international hospital office?
Bong Salau. And upon my arrival at the prison office, Bong Salau was arrested and sent away.
On that same page, you talked about someone who told you that you were in a prison office. You identify this person as Yeet. You said then Yeet, the deputy director of the hospital I worked at, came. He hadn't seen me at work, and so he asked someone about me. He had been told I had been brought here at the prison office by all. Now let me ask you a question first about Yeet. Do you identify Yeet that he was the deputy director of the hospital? Are you sure about that, or are you maybe referring to a person who was chief of logistics of Battalion 314?
Yet was the chief of logistics of Battalion 314. He was my direct supervisor. I served as a medic. He did not see me, so he asked Bong Salau, who was the deputy chief of the logistics. He asked Salau, where is the comrade? Why I don't see him going around and give injection shots? He told you that I had been brought by a vehicle to a place, to another place already, and it was the prison office.
And did Yeet have any form of authority in this prison office, or did he just come in and tell you this? Or what exactly was the reason for the chief of logistics of Battalion 314, to be there at this prison office?
He went to see all the chief of that prison office. He wanted to take me back for refashioning since I did not commit any mistakes, and he promised to send me back if I could not be refashioned.
And who was all? He was the office. I think the witness said something without the microphone.
All was the chief of the prison office. He was in charge of forwarding people further to Slang.
And how did you know that?
It was because you came to see all that I learned about that information. My chief wanted to take me back for refashioning. That was the time when I learned about that.
And did you know all before you saw him in that prison office?
I saw his face, but I, at the time, did not know him. Only when I returned, I learned that he was all the one who sent people to Slang.
And was all himself a member of Division 310?
It appears that he was not a member of that division. He was in charge of putting people in chains and then send them further.
Some additional questions about this prison office. Can you recall the inside of that office? Can you describe how it looked like from the inside?
There were guards and there were cuffs and shackles. We were prohibited from moving to any other places since we were considered prisoners. We were not allowed to move.
Did you see other prisoners, or did you see only fellow Division 310 combatants, or do you remember who you saw inside?
The people from my battalion were arrested and sent subsequently. Tang San were also sent to the location and they disappeared.
And can you tell us where exactly inside this prison office your photo was taken? Where was the camera, for instance, that took your photo?
I I was not photographed within the compound of Towards Lane. The photo was taken at an office, and the photo was shot in order to be kept, to be included in the biography. At the time, I did not know why they took photograph, and they wanted the photo, so I allowed them to take my photo.
Do you know whether the people who were in charge of this prison office belong to Division 703?
The one who was in charge of that prison mostly were from the divisions of the southwest. I mean, they were from the division of Division 502.
Was it maybe called S22?
I am not aware of S22. I was arrested and sent to that place, and those people disappeared after they had been sent there.
Mr. President, I'll be referring to document E3/5263, which is a WRI from a witness, Sreng T, who talks about a prison belonging to Division 502. More specifically, I'll be referring to English ERN 00282225 and French 002-83350. Unfortunately, I don't have a Khmer ERN right now. Mr. Witness, I asked you already. You were not able to look out of the window where you were taken. At the DC Cam statement, in your DC Cam statement, you said it was about 2 to 3 kilometers. This witness that I just referred to speaks about a location called S22, located west of the Tik Laak school. Does that sound in any way somehow familiar?
I cannot recall it. It is 47 years already from that time until now. I was young at the time, and I am getting older now, so my memory does not serve me well.
That's fine, Mr. Witness, no problem. Let me move on. From this prison office, you were subsequently sent to work at Kampong Chnang airfield. I will be asking you some questions about that. But I first would like to ask you some questions about what you did after you left Kampong Chnang airfield. Where did you go then?
I was removed for refashioning since it was said that I was part of the traitorous network. I was from the North Zone, so I was needed for refashioning in Kampong Chnang. I was made to dig dirt at the airfield and burned the explosive. I was made to work from 4 a.m. up until 12 p.m. Then I resumed the work at 1 in the afternoon. Later on, Vietnam attacked that conducted the attack in 1979, and they said that for comrades who had already been refashioned needed to be sent for the resistance movement against Vietnamese. I was in Kampong Chnang for refashioning for 3 months. Then I was brought to engage in a war against Vietnam. They said that we had a background in combat, so we were sent for fighting. They sent us from Kampong Chnang to Tak Khmer. We were equipped with weapons. We were put in a fast boat in order to go to attack the Vietnamese. Since I was a medic, I was not sent for the combat, but I was made to be a medic curing wounds for the soldiers.
When you were sent to the border to be involved in the fights with Vietnam, which unit were you in? Were you in Unit 4?
I do not know which unit I was in. I was made to a medic in the military. I did not have the information of which unit I was in. There was a fighting at Bang Thlong and Chro Rumdain. I was injured by the shellings of the Vietnamese at my location. Then I was sent to be hospitalized at the Tâm near Suong. I was so severely injured, so I was further sent to Phnom Penh.
In your DC Chem statement, E3/7537, English ERN 00251258, French 002911009, and Khmer 00019651, you said, I was transferred to, that is, as we were from the Central Zone, we were transferred to fight in Suong, S-U-O-N-G, in Memot district. And a bit further you say, you talk about Unit 4. So I am not making Unit 4 up, it's coming from your statement. And a bit further you said I was moved to Song in Chom Pring. Is that correct?
I was removed from the airfield and sent to the military to work as a medic, wrapping wounds at Memut. At the time, I did not know which unit I was in or which battalion I was in. I was forcibly moved at the time.
What do you mean forcibly moved, Mr. Witness?
They saw that there was an intensified attack by the Vietnamese, so some traitors at the airfield were to be sent to counter the attack. I wrapped wounds for a soldier or soldiers who were sent to me for treatment, and at the time I got wounded, severely wounded, and I was hospitalized.
Thank you for the clarification, but I don't understand the word forcibly. You were a Division 310, Battalion 314 soldier, at least from 17 April 75 all the way until the end. So if you as a soldier received an order from your superior, you had to obey it, isn't it true? Certainly because it was war with Vietnam. So I don't understand the word forcibly.
They said that if we did not go, then the Vietnamese would enter our Cambodian territory, and as a result, we would not survive. Vietnamese would slaughter us, and since we were former soldiers that we used to liberate the Phnom Penh, then we were sent to counter the advancements by the Vietnamese troops. As for Division 310, they were sent there, but I did not know which unit I was assigned to because I did not see those soldiers who were in the same unit with me previously.
I understand. Let me try it differently. Mr. Witness, is it correct that as of the day of the liberation of Phnom Penh, 17 April 75, until the Vietnamese occupied Cambodia on the 7th of January 79, you had always been a soldier within Division 310? Is that correct?
After I was wounded, I was hospitalized, so I was no longer belonging to the division. I spent about 2 months in a hospital in Phnom Penh.
Let me ask it more concretely. While you were at the Kampong Chnang airfield and before you went to Song, were you a member of Division 310?
We were not told as under which division or division 310 that we were supposed to be, because we were sent in a speedboat, and there were quite a number of soldiers who had a tendency while we worked at the Kampong Chnang, so we disembarked at Tonle, but then we were put onto a vehicle.
One last attempt, Mr. Witness. When you were at Kampong Chnang airfield, you were there in your capacity as a Division 310 soldier, correct?
At the time we were under Division 310, but when we were at the airfield, it seems that we were no longer connected to that division because their place of work site was for refashioning us.
But how do you know that? Who told you that?
I do not understand that.
I think you need to clarify who told him what. That he was no longer under 310, I presume.
Who told you that while at Kampong Chang airfield you were somehow not longer considered to be a Division 310 soldier?
That website was for refashioning and tampering. And they said that if people could be refashioned there, then they could be returned to be imprisoned at Tulsline prison. I did not know the person who was the chief of that work site, because my main focus was to work hard and to survive. If I did not try to work hard, because we had to wake up at 4, starting working right away, and then we had to keep working through the night, and there was a meeting at 8 at night. So I did not know who was in charge of the area, as everybody was striving to work hard in order to refashion ourselves.
I will maybe get back to that if I have some more time. Mr. President, I still owe you a Khmer ERN, the reference of the string T, WRI, it's 002-70179, the reference about the S21 prison office. Mr. Witness, let me revisit a subject that we discussed yesterday. Yesterday we spoke briefly about a meeting at a school close to Wat Phnom, where a tape was being played and where you were told about treason committed by Un and Koi Toon. Yesterday at around 15:47 you said that at the meeting were comrades from Battalion 314. Were there also members of other battalions during that meeting? Battalions, for instance, 306 battalions or 307 or regiments. Are you in a position to tell us that?
When they held a meeting at a school to the north of Wat Phnom, all battalion's members came. However, I only knew those members of Battalion 314, which was a logistics battalion. There were many other people from various other battalions, and then through loudspeaker, they broadcast about the confession of Koi Toon and the division commander, the deputy, and that they were traitors. They said that our commanders were traitors, and people from the central zone were also traitors, and for that reason we had to refashion ourselves, otherwise we would be subject to being arrested.
But just to be sure, you don't know anyone, or you didn't know anyone specifically from any battalions such as Battalion 306 or 307, correct?
No, I did not know those battalions. I only knew members of my own battalion, that is those who worked for the logistics battalion.
You said that at the meeting plans of rebellion by Un and Koi Toon were discussed. you didn't know many details when I asked you yesterday. Was it the first time that you heard anything about a rebellion or a planned coup d'etat or a plan to topple Pol Pot at that meeting, or did you hear anything or did you see anything before that meeting?
I only heard that the new commander of Division 310 said that UN and those in the central or the north zones plans to attack Phnom Penh, and that was the first time that I heard it in that meeting.
So before that, you yourself didn't observe any activity either in your own battalion or in other battalions or regiments that would be considered as acts of rebellion or preparatory acts for a coup d'etat?
I did not know about that. I was a subordinate and I was assigned to be a medic to treat the wounded soldiers.
Well, let me be concrete. Yesterday you spoke about the TV antenna at Tulkork, close to which you were stationed. At 1545 you also mentioned the radio station at Stung Min Chi. Before this meeting, did you ever hear about plans within Division 310 to attack the radio station and take over the radio station at Stung Min Chi?
No, I did not hear anything about that. If the matters were discussed amongst the commanders, then I would not know.
Well, the person who was saying this wasn't really a commander, but he was a low-ranking soldier who was also sent to Kampong Chhnang airfield just as yourself. And he testified in this courtroom on the 23rd of June 2015 at 9:11 in the morning. He said that there was a plan to attack the radio station at Stung Min Chi, simultaneously to attack Pochentong Airport, and that's what he says. The ultimate aim was to conduct a coup d'etat. There are quite some other low-ranking Division 310 soldiers who are saying similar things. I'd be happy to read them to you. But isn't there anything that you knew before that meeting that we discussed yesterday and today?
No, I did not know about that. When I was a medic in the battalion, I only concentrated on my work. I was afraid that they saw that I did not do my work properly or would accuse me of being an enemy. And for that reason, I kept working hard and not to make any mistake.
Did you know anything before that meeting about warehouses where ammunition was stored?
I did not know about that.
Well, let me conclude then with one general statement from that same witness who testified here, and to see if that somehow jogs your memory. This is at 23 June again at 9:15 in the morning, and Sam Hoon, who is from Division 307, Battalion 307, he said in court, and I quote, "Let me clarify the rebellion plan. There was Sao Pim in the east zone and Tak Koitun in the north zone. They already prepared their forces in the front line and at the rear. The army of the center was prepared for the front line, a plan to attack Phnom Penh. The sector forces were to attack behind at the sector level." End of quote. Is that something, Mr. Witness, that somehow jogs your memory?
No, it doesn't jog my memory. It happened a long time ago.
Then a final question. In your DC camp statement, when you speak about your time at the front battlefield with the Vietnamese, that your unit or that you were afraid that, quote unquote, the Yun would slit our throat. That is English ERN 00251258, French 00291010, and Khmer 0001961. No, we tried to walk by ourselves. If we stayed, the Yun would slit our throat. Why was it that your unit was afraid that your throats would be slit by the Yun?
At that time, the soldiers were still fighting, but while I was treating the wounded, I was there as a medic. They warned us that if Vietnamese entered Cambodian territory, then we would be slaughtered. So I was there at the front of the field, but I was not fighting against the Vietnamese, but I was treating the wounded, and later on, as I said, I was wounded by a shell.
But was that fear based upon experiences in the past, or do you know what the source was for this fear that the Yun would slit the throats of you and others once you would be captured?
I did not know at the time whether some of them fled, because later on I was wounded. However, before that they were fighting against the Vietnamese at Trapeng Thlong and Chrak Rum Deng, and later on I did not know about their fate because I was being hospitalized.
But in your experience as a medic, did you encounter ever fellow combatants whose throats had been slit by Vietnamese troops?
No, it did not. That could be the policy on the Khmer Rouge side, so that we would hate the Vietnamese and fight against them. So those soldiers, they were afraid, and for that reason they tried harder to fight against the Vietnamese.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. Thank you, Mr. President.
President, thank you. And the floor is given to the co-prosecutors to put questions to this witness.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. I'll be asking you some questions on behalf of the co-prosecutors. With your leave, Mr. President, I'd like to start by presenting to the witness a document that's part of his DC Cam records. This is in Khmer only. It's a DK biography, E3 7537, pages Khmer 00019461 through 468. May I provide this to the witness?
Yes, you may.
Mr. Witness, can you look at this document and first, are you able to read? And if so, can you tell me whether this is a biography that you prepared during the Khmer Rouge regime?
Yes, I can read, and that is the biography that was made during the Khmer Rouge regime. In order to join the revolutionary movement, everyone has to make our own biography.
And the first and second pages of this biography identify you as a medic in Company 2 of Battalion 314 of Division 310, and also indicates that you were 21 years old at the time of this biography. Would it be correct then that this biography was prepared sometime in 1976 after you had left P99 Hospital and joined Battalion 314?
I cannot recall as to when I made that biography. We were asked to make our biography.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. I want to turn now to the meeting that you've described already, that you attended at the school north of Wat Phnom, at which you and other Division 310 cadres were informed of the arrest of Division Secretary Un, and you heard a tape recording of his confession played over a loudspeaker. Can you tell us who presided over this meeting at which this tape recording of Division 310 Commander Un was played? Who spoke and who presided at that meeting?
After Un and others had been arrested, they brought in people from the Southwest group, and I did not know them. I did not know the names of the new commander. They said that Division 310 and some others in the North Zone were traitors. And for that reason, we had to refashion ourselves to be good, because our commanders were traitors, and I did not recall their names.
let me see if I can refresh your memory. In your OCIJ interview, which was a number of years ago, this is document E3 7877, Khmer ERN 00342-436, French 00411-784, English 00346-978. This is what you said in your OCIJ interview. Quote, Un, the division commander, was arrested by mid-77. I was informed of this because I attended a meeting held at a school located next to Wat Phnom, and all cadres and combatants from Division 310 attended. Nor announced that Un had been arrested because he was a network of the American CIA. If you do not believe, let me play you the audio tape. After that, the audio tape was played for the participants via 3 to 4 loudspeakers. End of quote. So you identified back at the time of this OCIJ interview, which was back in 2009, a person named Naw, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Does that refresh your memory? Do you remember that this was the person who presided over the meeting?
I cannot recall that. During the meeting, I was sitting at the back listening to the audio tape played over loudspeakers. I did not know this Nyo, he was a new person from the southwest, and he came to take charge of Division 310.
And I wanted to ask you about the timing of this meeting. Do you know when this meeting took place? That is, how many days or how many weeks after the time that Un had been arrested and disappeared? Are you able to tell us how long it was after Un's disappearance that this meeting took place?
Un, the division commander, had been arrested for about 2 weeks. Then a new replacement came from the southwest zone, and we were called to attend a meeting to the north of Wat Phnom.
Mr. Witness, we know from S21 records, specifically entry number 8135, 8,135 on the OCIJ S21 list, that Division 310 Secretary Un entered S21 on the 19th of February 1977. You've just indicated that this meeting was a little after 2 weeks of the time Un disappeared. Would it then be around March 1977 when this meeting took place? Does that sound about right?
I do not recall the detail. After the division commander had been arrested, everyone was scared because they accused the entire division as enemies, and that we had to refashion ourselves. The arrest took place in the central zone as well as those belonging to Division 310. And for that reason, I did not pay much attention to any specific date during that period.
That's certainly understandable, Mr. Witness. Thank you. the meeting that you attended at Wat Phnom, how long was that meeting? Was it just one day? Was it a meeting that lasted several days? What can you tell us about how long this meeting was?
The meeting lasted for 3 days.
And in terms of the playing of this recording of Un, for how long did they play this recording over the loudspeakers?
The new commander, that is the commander of the division, spoke about the traitorous division and about those traitors in the central zone. After he made that speech, he played the videotape over the loudspeakers, and we could hear that it was the voice of the commander. Then we learned that he had been arrested.
And my question was, do you remember how long they played that tape for? Was it for hours? Was it for more than one day? How long was that tape recording played for you to listen to?
I do not recall it. It happened a long time ago.
I want to read to you, Mr. Witness, an excerpt from another OCIJ interview of someone who also came from Division 310 and was a medic who had worked at the Preah Ket Malay Hospital. A person named Yun Sembo, alias Yorn. Mr. President, with your leave, if I could provide, so the witness can see this person's name and his biographical details to see if he knew him. If I may provide his OCIJ interview, it's document E3 5497.
Yes, please.
You're being handed the statement of this other witness who also identifies himself as a medic from Division 310. I've put a post-it next to his name and biographical information. He went by the alias Yorn. My first question is, do you remember a person named Yorn who also worked as a medic at the Preah Ket Malay Hospital?
I know that John, we worked together at that hospital.
I want to read to you what Yorn said about the meeting following the arrest of Boon. And this appears, this is in E3 5497, Khmer 00343-726, French 00411-791 through 92, English 00345-959 through 960. This is what Yorn had to say.
I think the question should be slightly reformulated, Mr. President, because Yorn is speaking about a meeting, but not necessarily the same meeting that this witness attended. So I think the question should be general, and there should not be an implication that they were at the same time at the same meeting.
Mr. President, I haven't said that. That's the point of my question. I'm going to read what Jorn said and ask him whether it was the same meeting. This is what Jorn said about a meeting that took place after the arrest of Un. Quote, and he's talking about how he knew of the arrest of Un. Quote, I knew this from Son Sen, alias Q, who chaired a training course held at Division 310 near Wat Phnom. Participants were cadres from various battalions, companies, and platoons. I was the medic on standby to take care of those participants, and I was there. The training course lasted for 3 days. At that time, Son Sen addressed to the meeting that Un, a division commander, along with Sambo, another division commander, had betrayed. And then continuing a few sentences later, following Un's arrest, Na was nominated the division chairman, and it was announced by Son Sen at the meeting. Na was from the Southwest Zone. Son Sen chaired only the first session, while the following sessions, Session 2, Session 3, Session 4, and Session 5, were covered by Na. End of quote. My question to you, Mr. Witness, does this sound like the same meeting that you attended? And if so, do you remember someone, whether Son Sen spoke at the very outset of the meeting before it was taken over by Na?
I was invited to a meeting to the north of Wat Phnom. In that school, I could hear the voice of Nyo, but not Sen. Perhaps Nyo was made a statement before I arrived, before I attended the second sessions.
During the regime, did you know who Son Sen was, and did you ever see him at any time?
I heard of his name. I never saw his face. I do not know how he looked like.
And when this recording of Un's confession was played, were you told whether he had been tortured in order to force him to make that confession? Did anyone ever tell you that?
I do not remember it. All I know is that Un was arrested.
You testified the other day that after this meeting, there were arrests of other Division 310 cadres. Can you give us a sense of how often these arrests took place? How many people in the division were arrested following this meeting?
I heard that people were transferred from this unit to that unit, but they never returned. They disappeared after they were transferred. When I asked others, I was told that they were arrested. We asked about their whereabouts, but we were told that they were transferred to different places. I do not know if they had been sent to those lines for detention. They were transferred and never returned.
Did you ever witness with your own eyes any cadres in your battalion or other battalions in Division 310 being arrested or taken away? Did you ever see that yourself?
I witnessed the cases of my supervisors, Bong Salau and Bong Num. They came to call them away. They were tied up. I saw them being tied up with my own eyes. These people were my direct supervisors.
And where is it that you saw them being tied up?
They were at Bang Proyam. I was called to provide the treatment at Bang Prayap, close to the handicap unit. The logistic unit of Battalion 314 was close to that Bang Prayap. A vehicle arrived and Salau was tied up and Num was also tied up. One was tied up at Salau and another one was tied up close to Kumuin. I witnessed they were being arrested.
And who were the people who came and tied them up and took them away?
I do not know them. They were arrested at the time when the Southwest had been transferred to take charge of their location in replacement of the Northwest, and I do not know those people, President. It is now time for break. The chamber will take break from now until 3 p.m. Court officer, please assist the witness in the waiting room during the break time, and please invite him back into the courtroom at 3 p.m. The court is now in recess.